Here it is, lake effect snow, November 19th, 2017. Just got north of Prospect, PA. We're starting to get to the northwest Pennsylvania snow belts. Heading up to, hopefully I'll get there. Oil Creek State Park in Crawford County. We haven't seen this kind of snow in at least a year.
About this, and it's developed in just over 2 years. It's a pretty big
see, it looks like early December.
Campaign to save the boundary riders.
19th, so they're a few weeks ahead.
I think it's pretty common in adventure sports. People get out into nature, which is a very good thing. And when they begin to experience nature in special and unique ways, for you, canoeing's been a really big deal. Then they want to take care of nature. It becomes family, right? And people that may have been apathetic before suddenly care. And the human race has to have mining, like you mentioned, but we can do it in a balanced, responsible way, and certainly we don't want to destroy an amazing wilderness like Boundary Waters. So it's a good campaign, good for you guys.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, one thing you mentioned that's so important is to get our kids out into the woods. pictographs on a big rock wall along the edge of the lake. You know, those are spiritual sites, and sometimes, you know, when you're by yourself, your imagination tries to figure out what it was like maybe 200 years ago when Native Americans painted these rocks. You know, it's just, it's one of those things that nobody really knows exactly why they were painted or what they mean. There's figures of people, figures of goose and otters that are painted on the rock, and they're done in a type of pigment that lasts for hundreds of years. So I was at that site and parked my boat along the edge of the cliff, climbed the cliff around the edge of it.
On the top of this pictograph cliff, all by myself, probably nobody within, I don't know, 20 miles, who knows. And an eagle flew by, followed closely by another bald eagle, and the two right in front of me grasped talons together and did a roll, a 360 roll, within about 20 yards of where I was sitting on top of that rock.
That's fantastic.
That was probably one of the more memorable things that's ever happened to me in the Boundary Waters. And you get a feeling like, well, what was going on there? You know, something special was going on, and I just happened to be there to watch it. So, you know, on every trip though, there's always encounters with wildlife, whether it's a red squirrel or a black bear. There's always some wildlife that will impress you when you're in the wilderness on a trip in the Boundary Waters.
You know, for our listeners who maybe haven't been out in wilderness much, I think you just gave them a great reason to do it. The experiences that you have, the memories are so rich. And
That's right.
unless you go out there and take the time to observe, you miss out on all that. And your life is just, you know, you don't get to have that rich experience as part of your history. I took my nephew, I call it in between the seasons camping. We went up to, about 10,500 feet in May, which means it's still wintertime up there. You start in the spring and you end up in the winter by the time you reach your camp. So we snow camped, and the next morning we hiked on up above tree line, maybe to 12,000, 12,500. And there were two ravens that were building a nest in the cliffs. And what was so fascinating, it's a similar story to yours. These ravens had no nest building materials nearby because they're so high above tree line, there's snow everywhere. And so they were flying, you know, maybe 3 miles to get to a patch of last year's grass that was sticking out of the snow. And then they would get a mouthful and then fly not only 3 miles back, but back up, you know, 2,000-3,000 more vertical feet to get to this nesting site. And we thought it was fascinating to watch him go back and forth.
It's a long trip to get a blanket.
It is. But the fun part is the golden eagle came over the Continental Divide and flew into their area, and they just went ballistic. Golden eagles and ravens obviously are enemies, and the eagles, while they could soar forever, they're not as maneuverable as the ravens, and the ravens with their acrobatics can wreak havoc on an eagle's flight. So anyway, the ravens attacked the golden eagle, and finally the eagle gave up, and he spread his wings and caught an updraft and was over the Continental Divide in about 30 seconds and gone. And you see those sorts of interactions. And my nephew had never been out and experienced this sort of stuff, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to camp or not and do the snow thing. And then he watched all of this, and he realized the value of that and started getting excited. And just when we thought that the show was over, an avalanche triggered on the other side of the valley, and you know, we saw thousands of tons of snow come crashing down and thundering into the valley, and we just stood there in awe. You know, it's one of those things that I'll remember for the rest of my life. My nephew will too. And unless you get out and do this stuff, you don't get to have those experiences.
That's right. You don't have to go too far either to see things like that. You know, here just one half an hour paddle into a campsite on some lake that's very close to an entry point, which is what we did with our kid when she was very young. Is, you know, you can't portage a pile of diapers, for instance, you know, very far. So we would just go out very short ways and find a nice campsite, and you'd see, you know. Well, one of the last times we were out, we had a red squirrel of all animals in our campsite stealing stuff, and he grabbed a rubber spatula, which is probably, you know, 12 inches long, and it disappeared. We never saw it.
Squirrels are
What happened to that?
pesky
And then,
little
like, 3
buggers.
days into our camping at this site, the spatula comes flying out of the tree from about 30 feet up.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, there's always something funny that happens. It's usually some animal that's involved. It's very impressive stuff, too, like what you described with the eagle and the raven. The ravens are super smart. They're the smartest of the birds, and you know, their antics are, their calls all mean something. If you watch ravens for a while, you realize that there's a lot more going on there than just instinct. You know, they're very smart birds.
You know, when I was a kid, we came across a crow, not a raven, but close cousin,
Yeah.
caught in a leg hold trap. And we got a permit to nurse this crow back to health. Its leg had to be amputated, and so it lived with us for a while there. And it almost learned to talk.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It learned how to say hello in a whispering kind of a voice.
Okay.
And they are fascinating animals. Very, very, very intelligent and playful.
That's right.
So
Yeah, they fly over here in our little Northwoods town at the edge of the Canadian border and make sounds that, you know, it's different every time. The gurgling water sounds, all kinds of crazy vocal expressions that they make, especially now because this is when they're starting to mate for, you know, here in the Northwoods in January and February. You know, they're early nesters, so they're doing all that kind of antics up in the sky on a nice clear blue sky day over our little town of Ely.
invites you to attend one of his popular Colorado photo workshops. Got an expensive camera? Get a return on your investment by learning how to use it. John will cut you to the chase by showing you his fabulous 5 camera settings. That's all you'll need. Then learn from the best how to use your eye to compose photos along secret roads in one of John's favorite Colorado places, guaranteeing you amazing images. Great food, great scenery, and great fun at sunrise and sunset. Visit johnfielder.com for the complete 2015 schedule. Hey friends, don't miss out on the family fun that is the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness this summer. Paragus Northwoods Company, located at the edge of the wilderness in Ely, Minnesota, is the leading supplier of fun for families and friends in the Boundary Waters Wilderness. Paragus supplies the canoes and the camping gear that makes a wilderness adventure so easy and so enjoyable. Find them online at paragus.com. That's PIRAGIS.com. Or pick up the phone and talk to their outfitting department at 1-800-223-6565. 1-800-223-6565. Adventure sports always stretch people's boundaries a little bit, and it's one of the reasons why I love adventure sports. You find out what you're made of, and it's really character building sometimes, I think, in a very good way. But it seems like when you get out there, sometimes things don't go the way you planned. So can you tell us about a time when maybe things didn't go quite right and what you learned from the experience? And the main idea here is I want to give advice to our listeners by sharing what you've been through and how you managed the situation. You may actually save a life because you can give people insight that may be useful for them someday.
Sure. You know, I guess we've been fortunate. We've never had any incidents where we've been threatened physically. We've always been cautious. I think that's, you know, really and using common sense and caution is really what you need to do. When the water's cold, you stay near shore. You know, canoes occasionally have been known to tip over. It's very unusual to happen, but you know, only the part of the ship that happen. Incidents like that, you know, things have happened around here where people have lost their lives around rapids and that sort of thing, where they weren't as cautious as they should have been. But for us, you know, it's almost been kind of funny little incidents. We were camped on an island in Basswood Lake years ago, back in probably in the early 80s with some friends. And it was one of those nights with thunder and lightning and rain, and you know, you just kind of sit tight under the tarp until it's time for bed and you go into the tent. And saying, "Can we stay under your tarp? We want to stay. We have a problem in our campsite. Our campsite. Can we just spend the night under your tarp?" And we said, "Well, sure, of course you can. Yeah, what's the problem, you know?" the next morning they had already gone back to their campsite. We stopped over there and they said, oh yeah, the bear came into our campsite. It was like 10 o'clock at night and it was chasing normal for a bear, you know, to smell food and want to eat it. And we just took a swat at our dog and we got so afraid we just got in the canoe and we paddled over. I said, well, you know, it helps not to have food that's not too smelly. Frying salami, whatever, you know, it's going to have it's like bacon, it's going to have a pretty intense odor, and bears are very good at smelling food. So, and if, you know, that's one of the things that people are afraid of. Traditionally, you know, we get that question all the time. You have to be afraid of bears. Well, you don't have to be afraid of bears, but you have to be afraid, really, of losing your food. That's what happens. The food pack, if it smells a lot, can be, you know, the source of their interest, and they'll run away with a whole pack. So,
wow.
food,
Some of the islands in the Allegheny River
35 miles into the
almost
wilderness,
completely
and they have no food
underwater.
packs.
Gotten so much
You
rain
want to
in
be
these
really
past few
careful with
days.
your food pack, and you want to be careful about cooking and looking around too for evidence of bears. You know, some campsites are kind of attractants to bears because there's a lot of people that stay
It's
there.
bear
They know
hunting
the route.
season
You know, they
in
know the route
Pennsylvania.
to campsites. They're called
They better not be hunting bears on Sunday in the
persistent
state
bears.
park.
So
That's
you
one
want,
thing I hate
you know, we
about
try to go to
hunting
places
season
where
is
there aren't
it's
as many
so
people or where we know there
not
aren't
advised to go hiking anywhere in the state on a
One of
Saturday.
the things that people do is hang
Because
their
one out of
pack
four
in the
people hunt.
trees.
I don't hunt. Nobody in
That's
my
very
family's
difficult
ever
to do,
hunted.
first of all,
And
to get it away from bears.
it's
Because bears are
frustrating
so
not to be able to
smart.
hike on
They know
Saturdays.
how to climb trees. They know how to get out on a limb and jump on a path.
I use it
and
as
break
an
the road,
opportunity
do
to
the
go
road.
out of state
So what we
sometimes.
do,
If the weather's nice enough to compel me to. Yesterday it rained all day, so I didn't go anywhere.
First of all, make sure it's all sealed in plastic so it doesn't smell. The liner of the pack is a heavy 6-mil plastic bag and roll it up real tight. Zip up the pack and just take it back into the woods. Now you gotta remember where you put it, but bears are
If you have a problem with gambling, call 1-877-566-21 something something.
in a tree. It's usually pretty easy for them to get sometimes. You know, you have to be really good to hang a pack before the bears can't get it. So we take it back in the woods 100 yards, hide it behind a rock, and we cover it up with some sticks a little bit, make sure it doesn't smell. And they never find it because they don't look in those places.
You know, that's a good idea.
So,
You know, 180 Tack, it's fun you're telling the story. 180 Tack does sell a Bearline product that we've developed, and the unique thing about it is that we include climbing rated carabiners and 550 paracord. So this can hold, you know, 500 pounds of gear if it had to. The carabiners allow you to string a cross line, you know, for 60 feet across, and then in the center of that hang even a heavy amount of gear, food, what have you, because you can use the carabiners to make a block and tackle. So you get rid of the friction. You're not dragging a rope over a tree limb and scarring it, and you're able to get the food way up there and where it would be tough for a bear. Now some smart bears may toy with the ropes, right?
well, you gotta spend the time to get it up there.
Tinker
And you
with
gotta
the
know what
ropes.
you're doing to make it work. That's for sure. And some campsites just don't have those kinds of things. You know, those kinds of rock.
I wish I could see a bear. I haven't seen a bear in 2 years. I saw
The
2
big
bears
thing I
in
think, the big lesson
2015.
is, first of all, don't bring food that really attracts bears.
Right.
Watch out for campsites that have evidence or knowledge that there's a bear around, and go someplace else. That's the key.
You know, we often think in terms of bears and their, you know, threat to humans, but we need to turn this around. When bears get in the habit of eating from humans often, if they become a big enough nuisance, then the wildlife department has to get involved, and that's dangerous and bad for the bear. So, you know, taking care of our food in the right way is protecting the bears too.
That's right. Yeah, there's plenty of natural food out there for them. Like humans, you know, they like to take the easy way out sometimes. You know, there's been all kinds of other incidents where people have made mistakes in the woods, not us particularly, but you know, a scout leader once went out looking for portage that he couldn't find, tripped on a rock, hit his head, and didn't know where he was. You know, so you know, I always want to be with somebody else if you're out searching for firewood or looking for flurries are
Side,
usually
the
very
south side
obvious
of
if
the
you have to
city.
look for one, you're in the
Interesting.
wrong place.
So it's on
And in
both
this
sides
case,
of the
this
river. I
young
never knew that.
man and his was basically lost for 4 days and
Side of
turned
Oil
up
City here,
at a
I guess.
campsite, many miles away, not knowing what had happened to him. Use common sense, be cautious. We always take our dogs with us, and we had we once had a little tiny dog that looked like Benji from the movies years ago. Probably weighed about 30 pounds at the most. And we had speaking of bears, we had a bear in the campsite in the morning at breakfast time. And little Otto, as her name was, the Benji dog, took off after the bear, and the bear turned around and ran and never came back.
Bears that haven't been around people too much are fairly skittish. I've chased off a lot of them, but if they get too comfortable around people, then that's when things get a little bit tricky.
That's right.
What would you recommend for people who are interested in taking up canoeing? There's some things that people need to learn. I mean, paddling a canoe, you eventually figure it out, but with a little bit of instruction, people can have a much more efficient paddle stroke and enjoy it so much more. There's also the concern about loading the canoe correctly so it doesn't flip over. Even how to pack a canoe correctly so that if you do have an incident, you don't lose everything you have with you.
Right.
What would you recommend for people who want to try this sport so that they can do it properly and have a good experience?
Well, we try to instruct our customers on the basics if they've never done it before. I think a lot of people think because we're born in North America that canoeing is ingrained in our genes or something, but of course it's not. And canoeing and a tandem canoe is a little different than kayaking. People could, even little kids sit in a kayak and make it go straight because it's symmetric and you're in the middle, but a tandem canoe, the person in the stern has really got the control over where it's going to go. So it does take a little practice. We use Kevlar canoes that are very light, so they're easy to push, but they also have straight keel lines that tend to go pretty straight. Carbon fiber paddles that only weigh 12 ounces, so you can paddle all day without getting tired if you're doing it efficiently. But yeah, you're right, there's an efficiency in the stroke that makes it a lot easier. And it comes with practice, and it comes with a little bit of instruction. We try to do that. But we only have so much time, we certainly can't take all of our customers out on the lake and practice before they go off on their canoe trip. So really, before you come on a wilderness canoe trip, you should probably take a lesson or two on how to paddle a canoe, because it's not a genetically ingrained, behavior. So the stern person is in control, the bow person, does always paddling on the opposite side.
Where she had to pay an outfitter big bucks like that every wilderness trip I've went on. It's been dirt cheap. My first wilderness canoe trip to Canada cost me $125 US. I might have spent 25 more on food and miscellaneous stuff.
Switch sides, which is what we do whenever it feels good, because your muscles tire on one side. It's always good to be, I think, switching sides every once in a while, and we do that here. Nancy and I switch one. I'll call a hut, and she'll call a hut. It's like time to switch, so we switch. And the stern person, using a little bit of skill, a J stroke or a C stroke, can turn the canoe back in the direction they want to use it. They want it to go. Making do what you want to do and win.
Nothing wrong with being an Nancy.
Sometimes you end up paddling on the same side a lot because the wind is pushing the stern of the canoe around, and you got to keep it going straight. And surfing in waves, when you're going with the wind and there's some waves.
Oil Creek.
The boat wants to get up on a wave and it feels a little tricky at first, and while you're a little faster than the waves are going. So you paddle a little harder.
The other way along Route
There's
62.
Some basic skills in tandem canoeing and wilderness that are pretty important. The ones that we know here, though, is that the mountain water in summer is a great
Village
place to practice.
Borough of
Because it's fresh
Rouseville.
water, it's warm water. You can swim in it all day
I
if you
used to
want
think
to.
Rouseville was a ghost town.
So, if you get out
I think it was
on
a lot bigger
campsite, then
in the
take a look
1800s when the
practice
oil
moves,
industry
that makes a
was in
huge
its peak.
difference, I think. So our kids, when we went out with two families, our kids would take the boats out with their life vests on and just paddle around the lake themselves without us. And I think that's, you can only give your kids so much instruction, right?
North.
And they don't want it anymore. So
State Park.
they can learn on their own. And it's get some manipulate the paddles.
Last time I started on the Gerard hiking trail in Titusville on the north end, and proceed to hike south along the east side, I think, of the loop trail. This time I'm going to start heading north on the east side, hopefully, and then if I have time, I'll do a little bit west. I was hoping to get up here sooner, but it's taken me 7 months to hike the next section of this trail.
Person doing all the work, but the bow person gets to do some work too, and that's really important. I try to everybody, so because you see, I've been on a lot of trips with and seen people that are not in my group who don't know what they're doing, they wish, it could be so much easier if you just knew a little bit more.
Rhine Farm, okay, the
You
trail
have
comes
time
through
to give
Rhine
instruction
Farm, I
while you're
recognize that.
paddling and portaging in the wilderness, but some people could learn, most people could learn really easily some of the basics of canoeing and make it a lot more fun. So just get a little instruction before you go out, and somebody who knows what they're doing, I think helps a lot.
Hey Steve, tell us a little bit about Paragus and how it outfits for these trips. Do you supply all the equipment that people need? What's your setup there?
Yeah, our outfitting department supplies whatever people need. We have what we call full outfitting, which means we give you everything that you need. You come with your clothes and your camera, and we supply everything else. Campsite, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and it was trying to get our food pack, which of course is not knowing what had happened to him. Use common sense, be cautious. We get bears. We had a bear in the campsite on a rocket and just paddle around the lake themselves without us. And I think that's, you can only give your kids so much instruction, right? But they also have straight keel lines, so they tend to go pretty straight. We use carbon fiber paddles that don't
have a much more efficient paddle stroke and enjoy it so much more. There's also the concern about loading the canoe correctly so it doesn't flip over.
Mm-hmm.
Even how to pack a canoe correctly so that if you do have an incident, you don't lose everything you have with you.
Right.
What would you recommend for people who want to try the sport so that they can do it properly and have a good experience?
Well, we try to instruct our customers on the basics if they've never done it before,
Oh, Free State Park, Rhine Farm. Oh, black squirrel.
I think because we're born in North America, canoeing is ingrained in our genes or something, but of course it's not. And canoeing, a tandem canoe, is a little different than kayaking. People could, even little kids sit in a kayak and make it go straight because it's symmetric and you're in the middle. But a tandem canoe, the person in the stern has really got the control over where it's going to go. So it does take a little practice.
What is this?
We use
Community
Kevlar canoes that are
Conservation
very light, so they're
Fund,
easy to portage, but they
National
also
Park
have straight keel
Service,
lines, so they tend to go pretty straight.
DCNR,
We use
Bureau of
carbon fiber paddles
Recreation and
that only weigh
Conservation.
12 ounces,
You gotta
so
take a look at Oil
you can
Creek
paddle
here.
all
Take
day
a look
without
at this
getting
creek.
tired.
Look at what a day of intense rain did. Now that is crazy. I've kayaked on this creek in the spring, canoed back when I was in high school. Usually it's just a really calm, slow flowing creek, but yeah, it is crazy fast today. It's going probably 10 miles an hour or more.
Instruction, we try to do that, but we only have so much time. We certainly can't take all of our customers out on the lake and practice before they go off on their canoe trip. So really,
Gerard hiking trail, that's where I want to go.
On a wilderness canoe trip, you should probably
Libya, made it through Egypt, and then down the east coast of Africa. And in November 2013, I finally realized my dream and became the first woman in history to have circumnavigated the African continent on a motorcycle and on my own, without a backup team.
Wow, that is a fantastic achievement. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
And I have to say, I mean, one thing that inspires me is you set out on a bicycle to do it in the first place. Obviously, that is a journey that most of us wouldn't even fathom. So you set out to do it on a mountain bike, and then the amazing thing is you run into these problems in Angola and you get turned back. But instead, most of us would just say, forget it, I'm throwing in the towel. You decided, I'm going to try this again, but I'm just going to go about it a little different way. And that's kudos to you for having that bravery to go through with it. And I assume, we kind of glossed over some of your other travels. I mean, you listed them as bullet points, but the reality is your travels through Israel and around South Africa itself. I mean, you had quite a bit of experience there leading into it, so I'm assuming that played a big role in your comfortability level in going back out on the motorcycle and trying this circumnavigation of Africa.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always say to people,
I got a lot of criticism from a lot of people, and but you learn a lot from these experiences, because in the end you realize that more often than not, this is only because of people's own fears that they're projecting onto you, and that was a big lesson for me. So I think that realization also helped me in the end to just to keep going. There's a famous quote, it's one of my favorite quotes, I think it was Abraham Lincoln, that said, when you're going through hell, just keep going. Because eventually it does get better.
Like a song.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and that resonates in every one of these adventure stories. We've had other podcast guests talk about similar situations, and every one of us likes to hear a great story, about how things didn't go so well. But generally, I think people, as long as they don't they don't succumb to that fear, the stories of the things that happen on a small level, and they can embrace the stories about
and they didn't have the right gear, the right systems, and the right knowledge. And that's one thing, that I really emphasize, that's important to gain. And there's times when I didn't have that knowledge and had experiences that were scary. But again, on this climb on Seniors Path, it was peaceful. It was great.
I think that it can really be helpful to people that like adventure sports to hear a story about a time when things didn't go right and how you managed to get through that time. I think we can learn from other people's experiences a lot that way. So
we had done a short training session in Colorado back in April of 2003. But we took off on that mountain a little bit ill-prepared, I would say. Part of it was they were living in Dubai at sea level, and so they weren't able to train at elevation. I was fortunate where I was living in Colorado at the time at about 9,000 foot elevation, and training hard, so my acclimation was good. And I don't think we fully understood the importance of that, and everybody reacts differently to the altitude. But on this trip, we had a couple different things that happened. One that was altitude related, and it turned out well. What we did is Mount Elbrus is kind of a funny mountain in that it has lift service, most of it, almost a lot of the way up to the thing that's called the barrel huts, which is 12,800 feet. And so most people will take these chairlifts up to the barrel hut, and then sometimes they'll take cats up even higher. And so then all they have to do is just kind of the last bit. And as we were looking at that, we said, that feels like cheating. So let's do something a little bit different and kind of get off the trade route. And so we saw this road that went up past this observatory and thought, let's go up that way. And then we'll kind of cross this glacier called the Titusville Glacier. And then we'll kind of meet up with the main route at about 13,500 feet. So, we're starting around 7,000 feet versus most people, starting their climb around 13,000 feet. As we crossed that glacier, some of our training had paid off. The gentleman that was the middle person on the rope with us fell into a crevasse, and he was able to self-extract himself from the crevasse. And so, we had some interesting experiences crossing this glacier. And we got up to this Truett 11 area and set up our camp. And we did, we thought we were doing the right thing. We went up and did an acclimation climb up to the Pastakoff rocks, which got us about 15,000 feet. And then came back, slept low. And then the next day we took off and climbed for the summit. As we were climbing to the summit, I was feeling really strong in one thing that I was doing is I was kind of getting summit fever and pushing faster and faster. And we, at this point, didn't need to be roped up because we weren't crossing any glaciers. We weren't checking on each other as a team in a way that we should have. Now that I can look back on that and say, that's one thing that I wish I would have done differently. Because the gentleman that we were climbing together with, he wasn't drinking enough water and started to get dehydrated. Well, we kept falling further and further behind on our schedule. And so at one point, he wasn't feeling really good. He said, hey, you just go on and go to the summit and, we'll be fine. And so I took off on my own, made it up to the summit, and that's around 18,500 feet. And I was the last person to summit that day. And so it was really neat to have, the summit of Elbrus by myself. And so I came back off the summit and met the couple at the saddle, which is around 17,800 feet. And they were moving really slow. They're like, we're going to still try. And I said, all right, I'm going to stay here at the saddle. And because I could kind of see them most of the way up to the summit from the saddle. So they went maybe like about 2 or 3 more minutes. And then also they turned around and came back to me. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm not feeling really good. So as we're leaving the saddle and we're going across this flat thing, this guy is starting to get ataxic, which means he's starting to stumble as if he was drunk. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Acclaimed nature photographer John Fielder invites you to attend one of his popular Colorado photo workshops. Got an expensive camera? Get a return on your investment by learning how to use it. John will cut you to the chase by showing you his fabulous 5 camera settings. That's all you'll need. Then learn from the best how to use your eye to compose.
And so forth. And so his wife had a sat phone, so we called and tried to get one of the cats to come up and meet us, because we thought once we get off this steep section and we get lower, it's going to, we were not going to be able to drag him anymore, because it wasn't steep enough where we could get the benefit of gravity. And so, they said, it was hard because they're speaking Russian, so we really couldn't communicate whether they were going to be there or not. We thought, we just need to keep getting, heading down. And so we got down, and it's right around the Pastakoff Rock, so around 15,000 feet. We get off this steep section, and now we're like, what are we going to do? And all of a sudden, that drop in elevation, dropping around 2,000 feet or so, was enough that the swelling went down. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know specifically, but I think the effects were reversed by dropping elevation. And he stood up, and he's like, hey, what's going on? And everything's... wow. It was an answer to prayer too. And so then, we were able to walk back down to camp that next day. But it was kind of a good wake-up call of being being prepared, working together as a team, checking on each other, and how are you feeling? Are you drinking enough water? Staying together as a group. And I know better than that. And didn't follow, some really basic skills for being in the outdoors and especially in the mountaineering environment.
It's so tempting to want to make that run for the summit. I've seen it before. I've had to call off climbs when there was a third member of the party that just really wasn't up for the task. And the other guy was, let's go. And I finally said, listen, I want to get up there too, but we're gonna kill somebody trying here. And it's really hard when you've worked hard to get somewhere, you've traveled a long distance, you've planned, you've spent the money, you're there, and the dream is right in front of you, you can see it, and it takes a lot of wisdom, doesn't it, to realize.
Yeah, it really does. And that's one thing, what are the outcomes from this experience is some skills. Getting a wilderness first responder training or wilderness first aid at a minimum, wilderness first responder, so that you can identify issues, properly assess them, and then know what are some good protocols to handle emergencies with that country. Taking avalanche training, as you're adding one or adding two, or even there's so much that a person can learn, and there's great organizations that are out there that will give you those solid skills, because this situation could have ended very differently.
You can't get any of the really wild wilderness preparing for the outdoor certifications.
It would have been better for us to, we did some skills training, but we could have done more. And we could have gone out maybe with some more experienced people, because this was the first, they had been on Chile and didn't have any problems there at over 20,000 feet. But I think it was a different situation. It's close to the equator, and the acclimation was a little bit different. And sometimes, some of the best athletes still have these kind of symptoms and issues.
If you don't mind, walk us through some of the symptoms of altitude sickness. Obviously, this gentleman was starting to struggle from it, but it got a lot worse than everyone thought it might. So what should people watch out for? What are the warning signs?
Prevention is the biggest thing that you can do. And so avoidance, in almost any outdoor situation is better than having to deal with it. And so things that we could have done differently is we could have spent more time acclimating to the altitude. So going slower and doing that. So one of the symptoms of like the dehydration, which may have brought on the altitude sickness, is your pee yellow. So you want to drink plenty of water, so that you've got clear and copious urination with that. It had even peeing and yellow. That would have been a sign that he could have seen and self-diagnosed. Another early sign is having headaches. And this